what is Elon Musk's opinion on regulation and big government? So this interview is quite refreshing because he basically reveals, well, basically Elon Musk revealed his politics in the previous topics that he talked about, and this part of the interview is quite revealing because it's gonna tell you whether he's pro-government or not.
I think this could be game over, you know.
So you do see some good in government when it comes to regulation and stuff like that. But you don't generally think the government can spend your money more effectively than you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like generally I'm like, I think pretty moderate. I'm not like sort of an extreme libertarian. I think there are roles for the government that
Libertarian.
makes sense. Like I don't think we necessarily want like a private army or private police force or private. Yeah, I think.
And here he's going to channel Ayn Rand, and this is the discussion or like the fight between the, I mentioned about small L libertarian, right, and the big L libertarian. So Ayn Rand is or belongs to the camp of the small L libertarians, the private army, etc. So the big L libertarian would like to have competing governments with private armies, like without any government at all. And you know, that's what Ayn Rand opposed. And I think Rothbard is the proponent of this competing governments and the private force, etc. Murray Rothbard, who's a well-known or notorious libertarian, belonging to the big L libertarian camp. And Ayn Rand, you know, one of the most effective advocates of capitalism, said or argued that we need government. I mean, government, like just like what Ludwig von Mises said. I mean, government is a necessary evil. Okay, it has the monopoly on the use of force, but you know, even though it's evil per se, because you know it can actually jail you for not paying taxes, we still need government and the role of the government. And this is what Elon Musk is going to discuss, is that it should be limited only. It should be useful for certain aspects of the life of a society for it to, you know, to survive and flourish. And this is why in this particular part of the interview, I believe that Elon Musk is like channeling Ayn Rand here.
Because, you know, some things that are probably the right role for the government. But
correct.
Anything done by the government is going to be inefficient because the government is a monopoly. People that don't like corporations should not.
Yeah, it's a monopoly. It has the monopoly in the use of force. And not only that, it's the biggest monopoly on earth, the United States of America, right?
To somehow think that the government is much better because the government is a corporation in the limit. It is the ultimate corporation with a monopoly on violence.
Corporation.
So like I think you know the right role for the government is.
Did he read Ayn Rand? I mean, it's all in the book Atlas Shrugged. Well, The Fountainhead is one of, I think, popular as well, book of Ayn Rand, but the Atlas Shrugged basically talks about, you know, the government being a monopoly, and that it can destroy the productive worth of the private sector. And Elon Musk reminds me of Henry Reardon or Hank Reardon of Atlas Shrugged, and I read that book like twice, and that reminds me of Mark Cuban as well, a billionaire as well, owner of Dallas Maverick, whose favorite book is The Fountainhead, and you know, authored by or written by Ayn Rand. And in this interview, yeah, I mean, it's Atlas Shrugged moment, indeed. So he talked about the limited role of government. So Ayn Rand discussed in many of his writings that the main role of the government is police, okay? Police to protect the people from criminals, right? The courts to protect contracts, okay? That's why she believes that you need to register a business for you to operate. Although she believes in zero taxation, or in my case, yeah, if zero taxation is not possible, I'm uh, I'm good. I'm good with flat taxation, probably 10% flat taxation. And third role of government is military to protect the country or the state from foreign invasion. And although Elon Musk did not talk about the basic role of government here and other stuff, he basically knows that a government exists for this particular role and not really to regulate all aspects of human life. Really, I mean, the government exists only to protect the individual rights of citizens, and that's it.
Is like to be act in a regulatory capacity, and we should aspire to have the government be a limited actor in the economy. So, you could say like what percentage of economic output should be governed, and maybe a third or something like that. Once you start getting above 50% government, I think that's problematic. So you can look at countries like East and West Germany, North and South Korea, and there was just essentially an arbitrary line drawn out to divide the countries. And East Germany was like kind of 100% government. West Germany was, I don't know, probably at least 40% government. They're like, relatively socialist. And yet the GDP per capita of West Germany was, I think, 5 times higher than East Germany. So that just shows you just how big of a difference it is if you have like something that's close to half government versus 100% government. Private sector is probably a factor of 10 more efficient than the government.
Well, definitely the case.
And this is also true of just generally if you have like a monopolistic private corporation, then the forcing function for serving the customer is weak. But at least private corporations can go bankrupt, and the government cannot go bankrupt.
Correct. And not only that, it's only possible for a private corporation to achieve monopoly with the help of the government. For example, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that protects all this big tech from lawsuit, okay, and they're using this basically subsidy, multi-billion-dollar subsidy, in order to kill free speech, to favor one political party over another political party, and that's how they basically win, quote unquote, in 2020. So there are a lot of examples in which monopolies became possible because of government help. And although Elon Musk did not talk about those instances, in the Philippines, for example, monopolies talk about, just give or name the biggest monopolies in the country. So previously, before the shutdown of ABS-CBN and GMA7 are the biggest monopolies in the media sector. In terms of energy, we have Meralco, Manila Water for water, and public utilities. And in terms of internet connection, we have PLDT or communications, PLDT, etc. All of these monopolies, they were made possible because of protectionism, because of government help. Without government help, with the government acting only as a referee, monopoly will not be possible. And that's the reason why a lot of previous monopolies in the past, died out because of the advent of new entrants. And that's what happened to the internet industry. One of the most decentralized and most the freest, the freest before, actually, the freest sector, the internet technology sector. But now, with the introduction of regulations actually help. They help big companies. They help install and perpetuate monopoly. Name it. So there are regulations that help these big companies or the big business against the advent of new competition. Okay, that's why observe that the big companies in the Philippines and in the United States, they support regulation. That's the reason why Wall Street support regulation. They support subsidy, etc. Because all of these government subsidies and regulations benefit them in the long run. And that's why I say that Liz Warren, the Pocahontas, okay, Pocahontas is nothing but a moron and a hypocrite, because the regulations that she's proposing or she's trying to enact or to pass are actually helping the biggest companies that she vows to destroy. Okay, because all these regulations help certain businesses in the long run.
Bankrupt unless the people go bankrupt. Like basically, unless it exhausts extracting money from the population. So
Well, they're trying their best. So.
yeah,
Now let me show you Ayn Rand. Since I mentioned the name Ayn Rand, talks about free market and monopolies.
System of self-sufficiency. One single corporation were to get a stranglehold on a vital product or a raw material, uranium, for instance, which might be vital for the national defense, and then would refuse to sell it to the government. Then what?
Under a free system, no one could acquire a monopoly on anything. If you look at economics and economic history, you will discover that all monopolies have been established with government help, with the help of franchises, subsidies, or any kind of government privileges. In free competition, no one could corner the market on a needed product.
Now this is Ayn Rand when she's a bit older, okay, with Phil Donahue.
Free of government intervention, free of all the force and the regulation and the controls which you abhor.
Right.
All right. Now we've got Mr. Gigantic Oil Baron saying $2.50 a barrel, a gallon. Now here's what happens. The blue-collar guy who's trying to make a living and feed his kids, can't buy gas for his truck, can't possibly survive in the free marketplace, and suddenly he's on welfare, and he's got to go for a handout, another feature of government that you abhor. You can't have it both ways.
But all this is economic policies. To
True.
begin with, nobody in a free society, now we're talking about a free market, in which the government doesn't interfere, nobody can become a monopolist. All monopolies are created by a special privilege for government. It's only by an act of government that you can keep competitors out of your field. Therefore, you couldn't become that kind of monopoly. The power you hold as an industrialist is not the power to use force. It's the power of producing something of value.
That people want.
And it's the people who literally control you, because every purchase is a vote in the favor of some businessmen and in a way against others. It's the public who decides what they want to buy.
And that's why I mentioned earlier that Elon Musk and that Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and Senator Karen is hypocritical. It's either she does not know what she's talking about or what she's doing, because all the regulations that she's promoting are actually helping, Elon Musk. I mean, the subsidy of Tesla, for example, is because of these politicians who support regulations, right? And now the liberals and Democrats in America are saying, well, Elon Musk gets subsidies from the federal government. Therefore, we can tax him up to 90%. And I'm going to say that Elon Musk actually does not need the federal money. But the problem is all this federal money, especially during the bailout period after the 2008 recession in America, all this money were forced to the private sector. They were part of the budget plan of the federal government. So even if you don't need money, and I think there were some corporations, BB&T Bank, for example, they refused to receive all this bailout money. But the federal government, was forcing these companies to receive the bailout money, even though some of them they don't need the money. Right? So who actually made all this bailout and regulation possible? It's actually the leftists and statist politicians like Elizabeth Warren, the Pocahontas, and fraudster. So now let's listen again to Elon Musk.
Knowing that the government is inefficient as any large monopolistic corporation would be, and it is the ultimate large monopolistic corporation, we should minimize how much the government does. Keep it to what is essential, and not go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the conservative concern with that is you start to give them, you give them a foothold, and then they're just going to keep going. Like you give them a regulatory.
The problem with the conservatives is that they only pay lip service to capitalism. Actually, the conservatives favor some sort of nanny statism in terms of welfare state, although it's limited welfare state, but they also favor some kind of regulation.
You want some kind of referee on the field. So, for
referee in the field.
If you're watching, say, a football game or something like basketball, there's referees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what he's trying to say is that the role of the government is that of a referee. All right. Do not over-regulate. And I mean, this is the first time that I think Elon Musk talks about these matters that are actually relevant to today's politics and environment, right? And I'm quite shocked that he's actually politically informed. I mean, he's definitely a genius, but I mean, compared to most of the billionaires that we have today, he's definitely one of the politically informed. If I have a better term than that, I mean, that's probably the reason why he chose Benjamin Franklin as one of the dead guys that he would like to meet, if that were possible, right? Because Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers in America, he is part of the Enlightenment and the Age of Enlightenment in America, and he was pro-freedom, and he is, one of America's founding fathers. Really.
So, would the games be better or worse without a referee? They'd be worse.
Correct.
So I think the role of a referee in games is important, and so the government's role as a referee, I think, is also important. You just don't want to have the government be kind of on the field as a player. It would be weird if the referees just suddenly started playing ball.
Correct.
Probably not. The game would not be as good.
Yeah. So, well, that's it. It's a really refreshing interview of Elon Musk with Babylon Bee, which is pretty ironic because Babylon Bee is one of America's most popular satire outlets, although it's being linked to conservatives and the right. But yeah, I think Elon Musk is pretty right in saying that they're actually centrist. Okay, centrist in terms of politics, but because of the Democrats' poisonous politics, like Tim Pool once said, okay, for you to be a liberal and leftist, you need to be deranged and support all their, extreme policies, taxation, etc. And that the Democrats of yesterday are actually are considered conservatives of today, because the left moved farthest to the left, of political spectrum. If again, if we are to use the left and right as valid political terms, but I don't think these terms are valid. I just think that the left and right are being used as mere terms. What's important is, are you for freedom? Are you for limited government? Or are you for big government, regulations, etc.? And I think Elon Musk, at the end of the interview, pretty revealed his politics. And that's probably the reason why he moved from South Africa, because just imagine if he stayed in South Africa as a businessman. And that's the thing about freedom. You can move from one place to another. And he knew that the only way for his vision to flourish and to realize his dreams is to be in a society that supports his vision. And he moved from California to Texas. And now he's championing limited government. Although he did not say it explicitly, but he basically said it in this interview, the latter part of the interview, that the government must have a limited role, okay? The role of a referee, that it should not be part of the game, like what the gangster administration of creepy Joe Biden is doing. That the creepy Joe Biden has turned Facebook and the big tech, Twitter, into its propaganda arm, and it's politicized everything. And I think that's what Elon Musk is afraid of. And again, that's the reason why he moved from California to Texas. And if Texas is able to sustain that freedom, then I think Texas will be able to keep Tesla, SpaceX, and his other visions for the future. And thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And have a good day. Merry Christmas again, and Happy New Year.